Hello, and welcome to this on-demand bonus session for Virtual Tastemaker Conference 2021. In this session, you will learn how to spring clean your blog with live site auditing with food blogger, SEO expert, Casey Markee. Our Tastemaker attendees submitted their sites to be live audited, and Casey selected a few so you can follow along and see his step-by-step process as he shows you how to self-audit your blog for common deficiencies. Learn how to diagnose simple technical issues, understand how to best set up and use popular plugins, and be introduced to free tools to check your schema, backlinks, and on-page SEO. You will be introduced to dozens of quality signals that Casey looks for himself when conducting the site audits for both small and big sites. Take it away, Casey.
Thanks so much, Leslie. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the presentation today. First of all, happy post-Easter for everyone. We're going to be spending the next hour, possibly 90 minutes, just going through a select number of sites. First of all, I thank you very much for submitting so many quality examples. I think we had something like 50 sites submitted, and I wish that I had a chance to go over every one of them, but we do not. I've tried to pull out. I took notes on 20 sites specifically, but I don't expect that we're going to get to all of those today. Most importantly, I want to thank you initially for submitting your sites for review today. And also, most importantly, please, for those of you who are going to be discussing your sites live, thank you for allowing us that opportunity to learn. And also, please don't take anything that you're going to see today personally. All of you on the call are doing great. I'm always extremely honored that you would put any trust in anything I say. I can assure you, all you have to do is talk to my wife and my family. They do not value my opinion that highly these days. So I always am shocked that anyone would want to listen to me for 90 minutes or so. Now, when we talk about site auditing, me specifically, there are very specific things I look for in any site, whether it's a mini audit or a full site audit where we do forensic in-depth analysis of content and technical issues. I've pulled out some very specific sites that have issues that most all sites do or have had at some point in the past. When we talk about auditing a site, there's usually three areas that we look at. We are going to look at the technical issues specifically. Those technical issues could be anything from your server setup to page speed to an incorrect use of schema. Maybe you've left things open on your site that you shouldn't have left open. All of that goes hand in hand. Then we, of course, want to look at the content. There is a right way to set up these posts, and there's a wrong way to set up a post specifically for Google. And when we talk about that, we talk about whether or not it's a recipe site or a lifestyle site or something that's, maybe more do-it-yourself or how-to content. There is usually a right approach to putting that content together. We're also going to look at how you're deploying your ads, whether or not you're with a top tier company like AdThrive or Mediavine, or maybe you're working with someone like AdSense or Shemedia, who unfortunately doesn't do as good a job with optimizing their ads and their placements as you should. We're going to look at a lot of that today. Like I said, enough of me. I won't ramble too much, but I know that there's going to be a lot thrown at you, and that's why we're recording this, so you can go back and take a look at it specifically. But our goal is to kind of give you a lot of issues that you can look for on your site. I'll introduce you to some tools that I use on a regular basis. My goal is not to get too technical with you today. I looked at the sites that were submitted, the vast majority of people on the site, and we're going to try to keep the level down so that we don't have a lot of what is Casey talking about? Trust me, I don't want any of that to happen. So hopefully you'll be able to follow along with me. And again, my sincere thanks for allowing us to use your site today as a learning opportunity for everyone. Okay, so on that note, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to share a screen here. I am going to start off with Tara Teaspoon here. Tara, I want to thank you again for offering your site today. Tara is running Brunch Pro with the Feast plugin. She's with Mediavine. Tara has a beautiful site, and that's the most important thing for you guys to understand is that, again, you can do from the outside, things might look great. It's just then when we start looking under the hood, there might be a couple issues. One of the very first things that I look at when I'm looking at a site specifically is I want to go ahead and I want to pull up the sitemap. And this is Tara's sitemap here. What you might notice here is that she has left basically everything on her site open. You see how this sitemap contains 23 sitemaps? Well, that's very uncommon. As a fact, if I was to go over and pull over, say, a site like Sugar Spun Run, as an example, and I was to go over and I was just to pop up Sam, who's been a long-time client, and I was just to pop up her sitemap, I want you to compare the differences between them. This is a common sitemap you would see. See how we have posts, pages, and categories. See, she has a special sitemap devoted for videos that I believe she's hosting. I believe she's with Mediavine. And then, of course, she's doing web stories as well. You can see that this is about what we would usually expect on the average food blog specifically. These specific taxonomies we want to leave open. Think of your site as a garden. We want to make sure that the most important content is indexed, but we don't want to index things that might necessarily be low quality, thin content, things that users are not really going to invest in. And unfortunately with TerraSite, she has kind of flooded Google with a significant amount of content that she does not need to have indexed. Now, for those of you who may be aware of seen presentations before, the biggest concern are these. You see those? Those are called attachments. And what that means is that every one of those sitemaps, you generate a new sitemap whenever you hit 1,000 files. So if we were to click on this, we can see here that she has 1,000 of her images that she's indexed here. And if we were to backspace here, that means this has 1,000 and this has 1,000. And then of course, here's number 4. She's already looking at 3,500 indexed attachment files. The problem with this is that this is the epitome of thin content. If we were to take a look at any of these and pull up one of these files, you can see that there's nothing on those. You see that there's nothing on the page at all. It's just an image file. The best practice, of course, is to no index these image files because we don't want Google to crawl them regularly, which is what's happening with her. Now, just to kind of give you an idea of how this looks in search results. Now, the average site, you can see here that she has posts and pages. So you can see here that she has about 465 URLs. If we were to go back to her dashboard here, she has 468 posts, 22 pages, and then maybe she has a dozen or so or 2 dozen categories. So at the most, we should be looking at maybe 600 pages indexed with Google. Kind of just as an estimate here. You can see here that she has almost 2,000 pages indexed. And that's a concern because a lot of the pages that are indexed are her attachment files. They're very low quality. This hurts her because what it's doing is it's taking up her crawl budget. Google is crawling all of these thin content pages when they should be crawling her recipes on a regular basis. Now, to give you an idea of what this means, this is an example of her prime rib recipe with horseradish. When Google crawled this, look at the other pages on the site they crawled as well. See right here? Because these are images tied to this prime rib. And if you click on this, you can see there's one of the pins that she probably used within the post itself. Here's another one here. Here's another pin here. And these are all tied and open and indexable by Google. We don't want this to happen. This is something that we definitely do not want to do. So we're going to go ahead and fix this for Terra today. Specifically, the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over to her plugins and we're going to add a new plugin. And the plugin that we're going to search for today is called the Yoast Purge plugin. And what we're doing here is we've got to get Google to get these attachment files out of the index. And so we're going to go ahead and install this plugin. Now, I haven't activated it yet because I want to show you what we're seeing before we do so. If we go over here to SEO settings and we go to search appearance, what happened on TerraSite specifically is that there's a setting here, which apparently was, I'm going to get rid of some of these, don't need those, that she just didn't realize she needed to check. You see under media here, it says media and attachment URLs. Look at this big yellow warning here. Warning, warning. By enabling this option, attachment URLs become visible to both your visitors. That's bad because it can have low quality implications. Well, we can't just go ahead and change this setting now because that's not going to encourage Google to get this huge amount of issues out of the search index. So what we're going to do is instead, we're going to go back over here to plugins and we're going to activate that purge plugin. We're going to go down here. Where is it? Yoast Purge plugin. Right here at the bottom, and we're going to activate that. We don't have to do anything else. We just have to turn this on. By turning this on, we've told Yoast to take over those attachment URLs. So previously, if we were to click on one of these, I showed it to you, it would pop up and you could see it. Now watch what happens when I click on it. You see how there's nothing behind the attachment URL but this black box? This is how we know the Purge plugin is working. We have changed the URL. We've changed the server header, the server status response code behind the page from a 200, which is, hey, Google index this. Now we've changed it to what's called a 410, where we're telling Google, hey, crawl this. I want to get this out of the index as fast as possible. And that's what we're trying to do here is we're going to force Google to recrawl all of these on a regular basis. We want to get all of these out of the index. And we're going to do that for about 3 to 4 weeks. We're going to flood Google with these. We're going to make them recrawl these over and over again to get them out of the index, okay? And this is what it looks like if we go back over here to the Yoast plugin. We're going to go to search appearance, and we can see if we go to media, you see where it says these settings are being overridden by the search index purge plugin. And that's what we want to do. We want to get all this information out of the index as fast as we can. So Tara, this is going to help you considerably because right now you're basically flooding Google with these thin content taxonomies. Think of your site as a garden. Those are all weeds. Google's having to crawl through all those weeds to find the flowers that is your regular recipe posts. We want to make it easier for Google to surface that content. So we're going to get all those attachment files out of the index. So that's step number 1 right there. Now, the other things that you really have to give thought to is do you really need all the rest of this stuff indexed? You see right here where you've left open these right here, which are probably built into your theme, but do you see that there's nothing there? You're basically telling Google to crawl an empty page over and over again. We don't want to do that as well. So we want to no index those as part of your theme. We also want to go over and do the same thing with possibly your categories, unless these are your own categories. For those of you on the call who have stores or who have products, I can count on one hand the amount of stores that really did anything for the business. Usually the stores that are things that you want to leave open are because of your own products. So unless these are your own products, we don't necessarily want to leave product categories and tags open. So that's something I want you to give strong consideration to no indexing as well. We also want to no index things like this easy testimonial category thing here, right here. We don't need any of that indexed right here. I'm not sure what this is. Looks like a cookbook. You can see here that this isn't really a valuable page. It looks more like a category page. I'm not sure if we need that index there. But there's lots of stuff in here you'd want to give strong consideration to not indexing at all. Okay, things that, and again, you would know better than I would. So I really want you to give some thought about no indexing this content. Now, how do you do that? Well, you go up here and you can see here that you have content types. So there's posts, we always keep those indexed. There's pages, we always keep those indexed. But look at all this other stuff here. You know, we don't need to have these affiliate URLs indexed. You might not need to have these libraries indexed. So you go ahead and click no on that. You might not need to have these testimonials indexed. We might click no on that. Same way with these FAQs. We might not need those indexed. And you would continue to do that as you go down. We leave the web stories open, but things like galleries, we don't necessarily leave those open. We click no on those. Maybe we do the same thing for albums. We certainly do the same thing for most tags. We click no on that. And we click Save Changes. And we'll continue to do that. We'll go over here and we'll take a look at categories. We want to leave our categories open. Our category pages are like the windows into the house that is our blog. We really want to do a good job of making sure that we leave those open. But then things like tags, you correctly no index those, and yet you left open a lot of stuff that maybe you didn't need to leave open. Things that are built into your theme. You know, this is a woo feed, book authors. I don't think you need to leave any of this stuff open. So this is something to really take a hard look at. If you can actually show that any of these in your Search Console generated traffic, that might be one thing, but I took a quick look and I didn't see anything. So we would just no index this. Now, while we're on this page, I wanted to show you this section here. At some point in the past, Tara, either yourself or someone advised you to remove category from the prefix of your category pages. This isn't the best practice. There's no reason to remove category from a URL. It's just needless internal redirects. You've already done this, so we're not going to change it. For the rest of you on the call, though, don't do it. No reason to do this, no value at all. So just an FYI on that. So we're going to click Save Changes on this. Now we're going to go back over to our sitemap here, and we're just going to refresh the sitemap, and you can see how significantly reduced that is. You can still see that we have the posts, the pages, the books, the products, the web stories, the categories. Here's one called post format. We probably don't need that index. We're going to look for that and go ahead and no index that. But you can see here that we've left the attachment files open because we're forcing Google to crawl these. And what's going to happen here is over the next several weeks, you're probably going to get these warnings in Search Console that says, hey, you keep forcing us to crawl these pages. I want to make sure that it's not a mistake. You're just going to ignore those messages. Our goal is to get these out of the index as fast as possible. So in about 4 weeks, you're just going to go into your Search Console and you're going to delete the post purge URL. You don't need to do anything else. The rest of it will be taken care of. Okay. Now we're going to go in very quickly here and take a look at the rest of the site. You have author archives enabled. That's fine, but we don't show those in search results. That's correct there. Notice over here on breadcrumbs, you have these enabled and you're showing category. Fantastic. That's what we want to do. So we probably want to take a look and see if there's something specifically we're missing over here. And there's probably something in here that we failed to no follow that we should have. I wouldn't worry about it right now. We've covered most of them on the call, but we can, if you have any questions on this, you could just drop me a note later on and we could talk about it. Now, we're also going to go ahead and talk about a couple other issues that I found specifically on your site. I'm going to go ahead and take you back over here to the home page, and we're just going to take a look here. I want to go ahead and take a look at one of your recent category or one of your recent posts. We're going to go ahead and pop this up here. Eggs in Purgatory with chorizo. Fantastic. It looks good. Couple things here that we're not seeing at the top, though, is that I'm not seeing published and last modified dates. That's something that Google and users really want to see. I always want to see published and last modified dates up here. Also, everything on your site should be linked to a real person. So as an example, let's say that I was just to go ahead and pull up, let's use sugar spun run again. Here's the best tiramisu recipe. You see right here how Sam has the breadcrumbs. We've got a published date. You see how she's linked everything to her About Me page right there. And that's what we want to do. We want to have little bylines there. She has a little notation for a discover policy, disclosure policy. That's great. Here's another example. This is Hilda. She's also on a feast theme. You see how she shows published and last modified dates up here at the top. You see how everything is linked to her About Me page. This is what we want to do. We're not only is it the best practice, but we want to tie everything to the person, to the user's homepage whenever possible. She's got this post may contain affiliate links. That's what I want to see when I'm looking over on your content here, right there at the top. We're missing that information. Now, the next thing that I wanted to point out to you is, and again, I know a lot of you on the call do this, and I'm going to tell you why I'm not a fan and why I hope that you consider making the change. If I click on your jump to recipe button here, you can see that you've allowed Mediavine to take it over. This is called to them an arrival unit. You see how there's an ad that's supposed to pop in here, and then the users are supposed to click continue to content to go down here. Two things I want you to be aware of. Number one, this is an accessibility violation. It's funny because Mediavine knows it's an accessibility violation, but they realize that, hey, the change in the fact that you could probably generate a little bit more income by doing that, we're going to overlook it. Why is it an accessibility violation? There is a specifically WCAG WAG guideline that says when you tell someone where you're going to go and you don't send them there, that's a violation. So you're telling users that you're jumping them to your recipe, but instead you jump them to an ad. That's not great for users, and it's certainly not a user-first optimization. I know some of you on the call really want to max out that ad income, but there are certain things that you should be thinking of first and foremost, and that's always how this is going to affect your users. I'm personally against anything that causes a disruption in that. I have bloggers, and we've done heat maps, we've done focus groups. Whenever we see this, it's really interesting to show the heat map recording to the user on the site and watch how the user just leaves the site completely. They don't come back because they don't like the fact that their experience was interrupted because you wanted to make a little bit more penny wise on the page itself. So this is certainly something I hope you rethink. I'm not a believer that ad companies should ever take over your jump buttons. And what's funny is that this should have been opt-in. Instead, it wasn't. Mediavine launched it and made it opt-out. And that was only after myself, Andrew Wilder, and others complained about it. So if you're going to use this, I urge you to opt out of it. Go ahead and return the control of these buttons to users where it belongs. Now, a couple other things as we're going to go down here. One of the things I wanted to point out to you is, do you see right here as I scroll over the images, see how that's clickable? Do you understand why that's a bad thing for users? What this is this is a needless extra click, because when something's clickable, users will click on it. And that's also something that Google's going to crawl, and you're going to slightly waste crawl budget. This is a needless extra click here. This is very common. And so what we're going to do is that when you insert images into your posts, you should always choose none on the link. For those of you on the call who've done this, one of the fastest and easiest ways to fix this is to buy the image on Link Fix from the Blog Fixer. That's what this looks like right here. I know it's about 65 bucks, but I want you to work smarter, not harder. When we talk about simple user experience, it is very annoying to have all of your images linked on a website, and that's also not necessarily the best practice. So I want you to start to considering removing that practice. Here's the image on Link Fix from the Blog Fixer. We want to unlink these images whenever we can. Now, you've done a very good job here, Tara, using this jump to menu. Very nice. Spicy savory egg dish. This is basically where you talk about why this recipe works, which is good. Then you went down here to Mexican eggs in purgatory, talk a little bit more about them. Go ahead and you've got some good internal linking here. That's what we want to do every time. I did notice, though, that those looks like affiliate links. Now, if these are affiliate or sponsored links, these should be no follow. Are you just linking because you like Demon Ranch chorizo, or are they a sponsor in the past? That's always something I want you to be cognizant of. We want to make sure that we no follow all links to sponsors there and now. That also includes anytime you use an affiliate link. For example, here is a Amazon link. If I click inspect element, I can see that you didn't no follow this link as well. All links, any link that has an advertorial or a sponsored consideration should be no follow. We want to make sure that we do that every time. So that's a matter of something that you missed. We want to go back, make sure that we no follow all that as well. Now, I noticed in this post here, and I'm going to make a note of this on other posts. When we talk about highest needs post, if you're not using process shots, you're not having a highest needs post, and that is just bottom line, my opinion. That to me is why I think bloggers who've had audits with me have been more successful. We always include process shots. We always put our recipes together for toddlers and drunk adults. To me, looking at this recipe, it has some good characteristics, but there's nothing highest meets needs about including a recipe that just has 3 or 4 photos of the finished dish. So I would really hope, Tara, that we work on that. If your goal is to really increase significantly your traffic, I can tell you, moving to process shots and doing other small considerations that you're going to see today as we go through will help you considerably. So just an FYI on that. Okay. All right. So I know there's a lot of other stuff we're going to talk about, but there's other sites that we're going to get through. So we're going to go ahead and continue to move over here. We're going to go ahead and move over to Kroll's Corner here. Very nice site. I'd like to thank the person who gave this site over for consideration. Let's see here. That is, I think it's Tawny. Tawny, thank you so much for offering your site today. Tawny is running a custom theme. She's on Cloudflare. One of the things that Tawny did is she's running, I'm going to go ahead and pop up this here, is that she is running Yoast Premium. One of the really cool features about running Yoast Premium is that you have the ability to run an orphan content filter, which I have run for you today, Tawny, in front of this audit. If we click on your posts here, you see right here where it says orphan content 85. I just ran this for you this morning. Those are all of the posts on your site that don't have links from any other posts on your site. For example, you just published a carrot cake cookies on the 1st of April. No problem. This is an example of a post that's not linked from any other post. It's very common for sites. But this orphan content filter is a fantastic way for you to see on one screen all the content on your site that doesn't have links from anything else. Whenever you publish a new post, one of the very first things you should have done was you should have gone up and you should have just typed in cookies here, found everything else you published for cookies, gone into those posts and linked to this carrot cake cookies a couple times. Okay, make sure that we're trying to pull as much of this content out of the orphan content filter as much as we can. Internal links, we can never link internally enough to our own content. And so that's what we want to do. But I've ran this for you. You've got a great opportunity here to do that. That's what we want to do. One of the other things that I want to take a look at your site today is we're going to go over here and look at your categories. Looks like you've attempted to optimize some of these categories. We're going to go ahead and pop this up and take a look. So this is one of the category pages you've optimized. It's possible that your page itself doesn't allow you the best opportunity to fully optimize these category pages. So let's go ahead and take a look at what you've done here. We're going to click edit on the dairy free, and we're going to take a look. And this is one of the detriments of having, in many cases, a custom theme, because it doesn't allow you necessarily to fully optimize as needed. Your theme does not have on-page H1s that are customizable for your category pages. Well, what does that mean? Well, for example, if you were on a feast theme and you were to go to any of these category pages here, you see how she's got this right here at the top? That's not great. It just says appetizers. But let's say that if she were to go in on this page here, you could optimize this. This could say breakfast recipes. Then we could put content above the fold here. You would also be able to add what's called a featured image. We could fully optimize the category pages as much as we can. In your case, there's only so much we can do. We just have the on-page, this is basically the on-page H1 for you, but this is also where your breadcrumb is generated. So we can't really change that. We can't really make it very long. And of course, we never touch the slug because that'll change things dramatically. It'll break things. We don't want to do that. Now, it looks like you've included a little bit of content here, and that's fine. Our goal with this is just to, we're not going to write a novel. Our goal is just to communicate to the user, hey, this is what you're going to find in this category. Here's some of my favorite picks. It's fine. It's no problem. I mean, usually we put maybe a couple paragraphs here. That's good. But then we also want to go down here and we want to optimize this. And it looks like you did pretty well here. Dairy-free recipes here, and then you put a custom meta description. So the only thing that we could change here is that if you could probably go back to your designer and see if they could code in an actual on-page, it's called an archive headline right here, which would be an H1. We'd also want to go in and code in the featured images if we can, because featured images will allow Google to pull those out in the search results, and these categories will be a little bit more attractive for you long term. So that's certainly something that would help you going forward. All right, so we're going to head back over here and let's go ahead and take a look at one of your recipes. You had the carrot cake bars. Let's go back over here and look at those. Well, you know, this will work. This is carrot cake cookies. What do you have here? Let's take a look if that'll work here. No problem. Looks like you've done a really good job up here. You can see what we're missing is we're missing an actual byline. We want to link all of your content to you, the user, whenever we can. You've got a category here. You've got a publish date, a last modified. That's good. I will tell you, you're probably going to run into issues where your colors are not going to pass accessibility. We can test that by means of a simple tool called the contrast checker. Well, this is a contrast checker, but that's not what we want. My apologies. We're going to go ahead and have a wave report here, accessibility report, and we're just going to pop this category page in. Shouldn't take very long. You see all the errors that you're getting, and the reason you're getting so many errors is that your choice of colors, the contrast is too low. So anyone with a visual disability is going to have a hard time reading your site, especially on mobile, because the contrast is not enough. Well, Casey, what does that mean? Well, if we go back over here, I'm going to go back over here to the carrot cake recipe, and I'm just going to look for this. I'm going to inspect the element on this, And I'm going to pull up the color here. And I'm going to pop up another one here. And I'm going to go to this tool called the WebAIM Color Contrast tool. Now, if I go up here and I enter the foreground color as the color of your text, you see how it just goes 1.88 to 1? Well, that's a problem because for accessibility purposes, the contrast should really be 4.5 to 1 or more. Watch this. You see how you fill everything down here? What this means is that you need to darken up your colors a little bit. Look at that. You see how we have to go all the way up here, even into the 5s or the 6s to get everything passing WCAG, AA, and AAA accessibility? And I know it's a problem because there's a trade-off. What do we have to do to pass accessibility, but also make our sites attractive? And this isn't something that a lot of designers have even given any sort of thought to. And so I get when we do an audit and we flag all this stuff, people are always like, man, I can't believe that my designer didn't even give thoughts to this when they were putting this site together. A lot of them do a lot better now, but this is something to be aware of. And it is certainly something I would be concerned about with your site specifically, because the contrast is so bad. Even on my screen here, it's hard for me to see that says jump to recipe, print to recipe, and jump to recipe. You got jump to recipe, jump to video, all that. So it is certainly something I would think about. Now, continuing on here, I noticed that you bolded this information. Usually we don't want to bold entire sentences because that too is something that accessibility wise is not the best practice. This also can cause shifting. So it can also cause cumulative layout shift issues if we bold our content above the fold. It's okay to bold a little bit of information, but I would say that bolding this entire thing is something that I would avoid specifically. Continuing down here, let's take a look at your photos. Very nice. It looks like though that the max width on this photo is 600 pixels. This is a problem because I think many of you know about Google Discover. Google Discover is specifically focused on pulling out images and highlighting content, which is a very unique algorithm that only pertains to Google Discover. Google Discover requires what they call high quality photos, and those have to be 1200 pixels wide. So we know based upon this right here, this photo is not going to qualify, and most likely none of the photos in here are going to qualify if none of them are shown as the max width of 600, and I don't see that here specifically. So this is something that I do urge all of you to give consideration to. If you were to go over to, let me go over here. If you were to go over to Feast Design, they have a fantastic resource on image optimization, which talks about this in detail. You know, why we upload images at 1200 pixels width and how to do that so that we don't have any issues when we're loading in these images to our site and causing such issues. So that is certainly something I'd want you to be aware of, as we can do quite a bit better when we're uploading these issues, when we're uploading these images specifically. Also, I want you to be aware that when we're putting this content together, I want you to try to make sure that you're not over optimizing too much. I use a plugin called SEO Quake here that allows us to see things like the breakdown of all of the headers on the page. And you can see here, it allows me on Tawny's site to see there's her H1 for carrot cake cookies, and then look at her H2s, carrot cake cookies, carrot cake cookies, carrot cake cookies. There's the recipe card. When we're putting these posts together, no longer do we live in a world where you need to have carrot cake cookies and everything. As a matter of fact, the only time you should really have your focus keyword is in the on-page H1 and the recipe card H2. And this is something that a lot of you did when you submitted your sites for review. You did over and over again. And there's just no reason to do that. If we go over here to carrot cake cookies, you can see that you've over optimized a little bit, 2%. Some of you submitted examples where you're at 3 or 4%. We want to work on that. Google moved beyond exact match keyword years ago. I want you to start thinking naturally. You know, we could put carrot cake cookies in the content regularly. You don't necessarily have to, repeat it everywhere on the page. It's totally fine. Okay. Now I like what you did here. Do you see how she actually has a letting the user know this is an external link? So if I click on this, see how it opens up in a new page? That's great. Nothing wrong with that. That's good accessibility there. But we also want to check that link and make sure that that's a no follow link. Do you see right there where she no followed it? So she's using Tasty Links, which helps. So she no followed that link, which is fantastic. Good for her. Now we continue down here. This is very highest meets needs. You see how she's using a labeled photo of the ingredients? This is exceptional, and I do recommend this. I think users like it. What I don't recommend is this. You see how she listed every one of the ingredients down here? No need to do that. That's what your recipe card is for. If you're going to include a photo of the ingredients here, this is your chance to show your expertise. You should be explaining right here some, but not all of the ingredients. Like, for example, what kind of vanilla do you recommend? Is there a specific kind of cornstarch that works better? Do we need to talk about the quick 1-minute oats? What if they don't have quick 1-minute oats? This is where you show your expertise by explaining a little bit about the ingredients as an example. And for those of you who want a visual example of this in action, go over and take a look at, this is savorynothings.com. She has a strawberry cream cheese stuffed French toast. I don't know if Nora's on the call, but if she is, Nora, we made this for Easter. It was awesome. And if you scroll down here, Nora has done an exceptional job with how she puts a recipe post together. She has a nice photo of the ingredients. She uses a collage here, but it's not necessary. That's fine. And then look how she briefly explains some of the ingredients here. You see those ingredient notes? Then she has kids. So in her case, she explained her ingredient swaps here. That's nice. And then we immediately went to the next stage where she does step-by-step photos. This is an example of a highest meets needs recipe. You see how she numbers the photos? I can't tell you how many times bloggers have come to me and we've done these focus groups and the focus groups read the collages wrong. Toddlers and drunk adults, everyone. We always number our collages whenever we can, 1, 2, 3, 4. She does a good job of that here. She has another section on tips and tricks. Here's French toast FAQs, video tutorial, little related recipes here, call to action, recipe card, done. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about putting together these highest meets needs recipe. And I could show this to 20, 30 different bloggers and they'll all do it a different way, and that's fine. But that's generally the kind of the thrust of when we're putting these posts together. So in your case here, I would have dialed this back considerably. We also wouldn't have said how to make carrot cake cookies. We would have just said step-by-step directions. Now, here's something I want you to be aware of. I like your collage here, but it's too big. Remember that we're optimizing for mobile first. So if I pull this up on my phone, it's huge. And I can't pinch and zoom. So whenever you're going to do any collages, I would urge you to do a 4-step collage at the most. And then I would have split this collage off. Okay, so start thinking about that. Or you could have just used collage 1, collage 2, collage 3. And that could have been a little bit better. And then you could have interspersed the steps in between the collages here. Great job on the tips and tricks, but again, don't need carrot cake cookies. Just say recipe tips and tricks or expert tips and tricks, something like that. I want you to get out of the habit of this. For everyone on the call, please, there's never any reason to hyperlink every instance of Cookie Scoop. This is spammy, okay? Doesn't look good. So I want you to dial that back. There has to be a way for you to kind of dial, one time is enough in the post for Cookie Scoop. Continuing on, nice photo of the finished dish. You could do this. That's great. Whatever you want to do. Do you like raisins in your carrot cake? That's interesting. I like that. Sure. Click always. We can see the results there, which is cool. Gross 80%, always 20. Good job providing links to related recipes. For those of you that are on a feast theme or who have the ability to use blocks, something that you might want to consider is, if we go to some of these other recipes, one of the things you might want to be looking at is using related recipe blocks above your recipe card. You see an example of that? See, we have a nice carousel here. This is a block, really loads well, very easy to do at scale for most sites. Okay, continuing on down here. Good job on this card. I like the clickable information here. Continuing on, we always want to have recipe notes. Fantastic. Ask yourself this. Always remember that the recipe post and the recipe card are separate entities. If someone was just to print out your recipe card, would they have all the information they need to make this perfectly? Okay, not bad at all. Not bad at all. I noticed that you had your related recipes down here. That's fine. I don't think it's going to kill you, but I would prefer to actually see a block like that up here. Now, I did notice on some of your posts specifically, as I was going through, that I was seeing as many as 4 ads in your recipe card. Not good. I'm against that. That's too many. See how there's 4 ads there? 1, 2, 3, 4 ads right there. I would dial it back. You know, again, I understand that our goal is to make as much money as possible, but I do see a lot of this with AdThrive specifically. They'll tend to stuff a little bit more ads in the recipe card than most. I would work on that. Also, one more thing for you before we left, I noticed that you had a lot of older recipes on your site that aren't nearly as high as meets needs as these carrot cake cookies. And that's fine, but when we talk about SEO, we talk about the Panda algorithm specifically, older content like this, which is substantially lower quality, hurts you. So you need to go back and start republishing content like this with higher quality signals. You can see here, there's just the photo above the fold. There's no real expertise here. This is the kind of post that's not going to generate much traffic for you. And we want to work on that. You can either update and republish it, or maybe you just give some thought as to whether or not you want to keep it. And I know you haven't touched this in here, but when we're talking about making the site the best it can be, Tawny, this is the way to go. So be aware of that. Okay. Thank you again for offering your site. We're going to go over and we're going to move to Nikki's site over here, which is from Scratch Fast. She has done a custom theme as well. And like I said, the problem with custom themes is that sometimes they don't have, they're not really built with the best SEO practices and honestly anywhere. Now, the problem with your site is that your site fails basically every speed test we could possibly find. And the reason that your site is failing all these speed tests specifically, Nikki, is because of these really huge items at the bottom here. See, yeah, you have a Facebook embed here, and then you have a recent pin embed, and then you have this Instagram thing here. This is killing your page speed. If I could go ahead and pop this up, and I'm not sure it's going to load here, but you're averaging about a 13 out of 100 on every one of your pages. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this to load. The problem with a lot of your pages is it was timing out all the tools. So it was hard for me to see if it was going to load. While that's loading though, I'm going to go back over here and show you that if I was you, I would remove all of this stuff from your site completely. This is going to significantly increase the quality, the bottom line load time of your site substantially. But this stuff has to go. No one's going to miss it. No one's going to interact with it on mobile. It's going to be fine. And hopefully this will load here. Hopefully it doesn't time out here, but it's working. It's working. It's working out, and it didn't load. And again, it didn't load because in many times the page is so slow that it doesn't load. Now, I also know that you're not using WP Rocket. You should consider using WP Rocket along with Auto Optimize on your site. That'll help you. You also want to go ahead and make sure that you're lazy loading all of your images, which you're not. That's going to hurt you. Let me go over here and take a look at one of your recipes, which is the lemon oil, olive oil polenta cake. Right here, we're going to pop this up. And let's see if this is loaded again. See, it didn't load. We're going to keep trying to load it so that everyone can see that if we can. But this is one of your recipes that you've loaded here. You've got some side issues. You see how your theme has pushed over your breadcrumb all the way over to the side. I would try to fix that if we can. We've talked about this before, where we want all of our content, Nikki, to link to our About Me page. Yours links to an author page here that we actually usually want to block. You see how slow, first of all, see how slow the site is? This is being redirected to your home page. We don't want to redirect to your home page. We want to go ahead and have everything linked to your About Me page whenever we can. We're looking at your images here. When we're looking at the images, you're having your featured images are set to load above the fold. Basically, the problem is that most of your featured images, the alt tag is just the name of the recipe, and that's not good for users. So for example, this one is just gluten-free lemon olive oil polenta cake. We'd certainly want to change that if we could. That only helps you. Matter of fact, if I was you, I'd probably look at maybe removing the featured image completely so that we don't have just two featured images loading on every page. Ditch these completely and then start the post further down here. We've got our jump to recipe, our printer recipe here. You've loaded in an image in here. This image has a width of 667. So again, it's from source set, it's too small for any consideration. The max width is 667. So you're going to have a very hard time building discovered traffic with your images so slow. At least the alt text on this looks good. That's much better. You can see here now we've tried 3 times to load the page. For page speed insights, we're not having much luck there. But continuing down here, we want to update your author byline. But I want to bring this to your attention, and I've already made a note of it before. You must follow your affiliate links. This cake is made with Bob's Red Mill Superfine Almond Flour. You can see here that it says rel equals no referrer, no opener. That is not the same as no follow. A lot of bloggers make that mistake. If these are sponsored links and they look to me like they're sponsored links, we want to make sure that we no follow all that. On the positive, you've done a very good job with these, with the photos. I like those. I did find it strange that you did put a sponsored post disclaimer on this page way down here. That's a violation of Google guidelines. If you're going to do a sponsored post, it really needs to be where the user is going to see it easily and where Google can find it easily. That's at the top of the post. We don't want to put it all the way down here in the middle. I'd also really look at you trying to, this is something I would work on. You're artificially inflating the post with needless extra links like this. I know a lot of you here like, oh, Casey, I want to make my posts longer so that I can stuff them with more ads or whatever. No real SEO value to doing this. Also, I'd be cautious about this because one of the reasons that your site is loading slowly is it looks like you're embedding your YouTubes directly into the post and not necessarily in the recipe card, which is going to throw off things as well. You got a nice recipe card here, but look at all these affiliate and sponsored links. Not one of them is no follow, so this sets you up for issues. And also, again, we don't want to put anything below the recipe card if we can. Don't put anything here other than a call to action. If you want to highlight your social profiles, have it be a call to action right above the recipe card here. And it's too bad. I really wanted you to see this page here and have it load, but it doesn't seem to want to load for us. So it is what it is. Okay, so moving on, let's go ahead and head over to a full living. Whoever had the site a full living, thank you again for sending it in for consideration. I'm just looking here, scrolling off screen to see my notes here. You're using a restored theme and you're using She Media, and this is Brianna. So Brianna, you have 2 strikes against you. Number 1, I have been hearing more and more about how the restored themes are having problems fixing the CLS issues. And even though you're running NitroPack, you are still failing all of the information for Core Web Vitals. And I'm not sure that you realize that. I actually tried to run a lot of your pages through the site and I got it either timed out or I got 24 out of 100. So let's see if we can actually get your site here. Whoops, nope, we're going to do it right here. See if we can get it to load. In your case, you're using NitroPack, which isn't that great, especially if it's not set up correctly. But we also want to stay away from editors like Elementor, which can be slow. In your case, when I ran this through, I will be able to at least show you your web page test report. The web page test report showed that you had a huge amount of blocking time. Blocking time is usually done at the server or because of an inability for you to configure caching. And so caching can sometimes result in huge drops in hosting. Look at this. This is an example of a recipe page on your site that's taking 43 seconds to load completely. This is the document complete, but look at it. It takes 61 pages, 61 seconds to load. Look at all of these requests from AdThrive. It's pretty crazy. You can see here that there's 900 of them. Now, I don't believe you have what's called preferred or delayed ad loading on. It's called basically delayed ad loading or preferred ad loading. It's it's an option that you can opt into at AdThrive, where they make sure that the content loads first, then the ads. You do not apparently have this on, which is funny because this should be the default for AdThrive. I can't believe that we still have to require or opt in for this, but that's what's happening here. Okay, look, here's an example of the page. So this is a full living. This is you're scoring a 15 out of 100. I want you to see this, what's happening here. Now, when we look at a page speed report, we're looking at two data packets here. We're looking at the field data, which is what Google is seeing over a previous 28-day collection period. And we're looking at the lab data, which is this page right now at this moment in time. You're failing both of these, but you can see that the lab data is even worse. Look at the blocking time. That's 1,700 milliseconds. It should be, honestly, 400 milliseconds or faster. Look at the time to interactive, 16 seconds. That's pretty crazy. This immediately tells me that you probably don't have deferred ad loading on. This is something that you want to go back to AdThrive and say, hey, do I have deferred ad loading on? Which is a specific setting so that the ads load after your content. You also don't have lazy loading on. You see how you have all this stuff here that's not getting caught? This is also why we would remove all that Instagram stuff that's happening on your footer here. Now, in your case, there's a lot going on, but I would just say specifically, if you were just to focus on fixing these page speed issues, especially in front of the page experience algorithm that's going live in May, we would have a significant improvement on your content. As a matter of fact, I'd probably say that you'd be surprised at how better you do. If we did absolutely nothing but just increase your page speed, you'd probably notice anywhere from a 20 to 30% uptick in your Google direct traffic. And I'm not even being optimistic. I think that's the bare minimum because your site is so slow. So this is something I would endeavor for you to work on. You can reach out and work with someone like Andrew Wilder over at NerdPress. They have my highest recommendation. You could email me. I could provide you some other options here, but this is bad. And that's something that I really want you to be aware of. Now, a couple other little things. It looks like you previously had social warfare on your site. I'm going to go ahead and pop this over. This is an example of a post that you previously had on your site. You see the social warfare stuff right there? This is broken code. It's all over a full living site specifically. So we'd want to go ahead and make sure, especially for you, Brianna, that we go ahead and fix this as much as we can. And one of the fastest ways to do this would be for you to use the find and replace. Find and replace. Here's a real-time find and replace. This plugin here, you can go ahead and find all instances of that social warfare and remove them from your site here. Very simple way for you to remove and fix broken code. Also, very quickly, let's go ahead and take a look at your free blood orange chocolate cupcakes. I like this because I like anything with blood orange. Preferably, I like mine in the form of a alcoholic drink. So, a little blood orange margarita, always a good way to start the day. I like what you've done here. Your text is a little big, which again, it's better to have too big a text in many cases than not big enough. But you're probably at what, 22? Oh, you're at 25. That's probably a little bit too big. I think you might want to look at maybe lowering that down a little bit if you can. We've already talked previously about the fact that we want to link all of your content to you, the author. That's not up here. There's no published and last modified dates. I don't know how current this recipe is. Remember that we talked about the image unlinking issues. You don't have that issue. It's just that your images are too small. So we really want to load in these images at 1200 pixels wide whenever we can. Your max width is 500, which again is going to immediately put you at a disadvantage for discover traffic. I like that you have the disclosure here, but I'm concerned because this is a sponsored post. And look, right here. Looks like you looks like you did. Look here, see where it says no refer, no opener, no follow, external, sponsored. You got yourself covered. That's great. No issues there. Good job on that. So we don't have the edit post info. I would like to do that. We've talked about the images being too small, but I wanted to bring this to your attention here. That's an H2. That is a novel. we don't make H2 sentences. We don't make H2s that long. So we're getting back into the problem where you think that it's helpful to stuff the H2s with all these keywords. It's not. So in this case here, we would have just said, we should have just said recipe ingredients and moved on. Then you had an H3 down here of the dry ingredients. Again, it's long. I'm not sure we needed all that information on all those ingredients. And then you went down here, the wet ingredients and frosting ingredients. This should have been an H3 as well. Yeah, you made it an H3 correctly. It's just a little bit long as well. Frosting ingredients. Why Bob's red. Okay, so you talk a little bit about why the flour is good. By the way, for those of you who are using pop-ups, you should make sure that the pop-ups only activate one time for the user as they're navigating through your site. If they activate on every page as I'm navigating the site, that's going to annoy me. I'm not going to come back. So be aware of that specifically. I believe that in her case, she had these activated as exit because I was moving up towards the top here. But we usually only want to have pop-ups when they're exit based, when at all, if we can at all times. Good job on the rest of this information here. Why Dutch process cocoa? Okay, little bit too much information here on the ingredients. I would probably cut this down here, or at the very minimum, I would include a table of contents up here so that the user can jump around to get to all of your information, because you've written an extremely detailed recipe here, but I'm not sure that there's a lot of that information is going to be super useful to the user or something they're going to stick around for. Now, here's the problem, is I had all this information on the ingredients, and I had to get through all this information on the ingredients before I even got down to how to make these right here. Look at all this information on the tools. I'm against this completely. I don't think we need to do this at all. If you want to include some tools as affiliate links in your card, great. I don't think we need a full section on tools here for the average recipe. I think this is just something where you've heard mistakenly that you need to have longer posts, or that your recipe company is telling you, hey, you need to extend the length of your post so we can stuff more ads or whatever. I don't even know if you qualify. I mean, you're at She Media, so that definitely sounds like something they'd recommend. We don't want to do that. Okay, you're with She Media to begin with, so you're in the hole in the fact that your ads are going to be slower and you're going to make less anyway. Don't listen to them if they're telling you to do this kind of stuff. It's going to hurt you. Our goal again with this is to make this post as easy to navigate and as useful as possible. I like the photos. Here's the problem though. I think 3 photos side by side like this, they look small on mobile, and I'm going to have a hard time pinching and zooming. So I tend to only recommend that we use sets of 2, collages, or individual. Look, and you went from 3 photos here to 4 on mobile. That's even worse. So I wouldn't have done this. I would have done a 2x2, made the photos a little bit longer. And remember what I said previously, number all of your photos, toddlers and drunk adults. What is happening here? Number these photos and then explain right below to someone who's doing this. I'm going to tell you that my daughter is 17 and she's a aspiring home cook who she wants to become a baker. So I sent her to all these baking sites. And I, of course, always ask her to critique the recipes as well. And she loves the fact when everything is numbered and it's very easy for her to pull information on and she can scroll through it on her phone. She's not using her desktop. She's not 100% navigating on her iPhone from her bedroom. So we really want to make sure that these photos can be pinched and zoomed as much as possible. Like the photos here, but again, I would have a little bit more attention should have been paid to those specifically. Let's talk about this. External links are opening the new tabs. That's great. I don't see an issue with that. Continuing down here, again, a lot of information before I have to get down to the recipe card. Then we've got the recipe card here. This is recipe card is with WP Recipe Maker, which is great. It is my top recipe card recommendation. You didn't link them though. You want to go in and you want to link all of your recipe cards to your name. And also you have the ability to go in and change these to a shopping list, checkable shopping list. That always looks good. Also, we want to make sure that the notes, this is a mistake. You should have detailed notes in every recipe post you put together. If someone was just to print out the recipe card, would they find all the information they need? And I know it looks like you're using, I believe that you're using, what is that? The name escapes me, but Slickstream. There's nothing wrong with Slickstream. It's fine. I would say necessarily that we might not need 2 rows here, especially considering I know you're already struggling with your page speed. Also right here, is this a trackback or is this this is navigation? Okay. Yeah, this is navigation back and forth. So that's fine. Good job on that. Yeah. And one more thing. I would ditch the Instagram footer. This is one of the things I see a lot on sites. This Instagram footer single-handedly will tank most page speed. So I would get rid of that. And like I said, I like the fact that you're on restore. I mean, I like the theme, but I don't have to test it to know that it's filling all the core web vitals because I see that over and over again with restored themes. So for those of you on the call who are on the fence about, whether or not if your goal is to make this a career and your goal is to build traffic as fast as possible, you're either going to have to commit to hiring someone to modify their existing theme here to make it faster, or you're going to have to make the decision to move to something like a Feast theme using the Feast plugin, which are just incredibly built for speed, and then hiring someone to do some modifications there. That's just the way to go. I can't tell you how many people have come to me with these really bloated themes and they were just sold a bill of goods, which, year later, 2 years later, it's just made it impossible to build traffic. So try to make the decision now if you can. Use a theme that has solid support. Use a theme that's out of the box, very friendly and very optimized for speed. Okay, so continuing back over here, we're going to go, let's see where I was. We're going to go down here. We're going to go back over to what's for dinner. This is Devour Dinner. Let me go ahead and find this site. This is for Rebecca. Rebecca, thank you. She's on a Divi theme. She's running Mediavine. Same thing. Not a huge fan of Divi. I mean, it will work for you, but you're going to have to optimize the heck out of it. Designed by, it's okay. I mean, there's a lot you can do with it. One of the things that we're going to do here is, let's see here. One of the things I noticed on your site here is that you didn't optimize your categories very well. Let's go and take a look at your Instant Pot. Looks like, yeah, that's strange here. I wouldn't do this. I would actually just provide a little bit more information above the fold. I would also go ahead and make sure that we filled out links to what you consider your best Instant Pot resources. Let's go to appetizer here. This is better. I like this. I would have included links to a little bit more of your content up here. We want to link everything as much as we can. Appetizer up. I would have gone ahead and optimize your, see how it just says appetizer for your title up here on the left-hand side. Go into Yoast to make sure you're typing in appetizer recipes. Go in and make sure that you're filling in all of your meta descriptions. You see how you didn't fill in any meta descriptions on this site? I noticed that was an issue for you, not just on the category pages, but on many of your recipe posts as well. I'd want to fill in all that information as much as we can. I did. Let's go here and take a look. What else would I want? Oh, no. Oh, that's what I wanted to see here. Let's go over here and take a look at some of your recent recipes. Let's see here. How about the green enchilada casserole? Okay. The first thing that I want you to see on this, and we've already covered it, no byline, no SEO post information at all. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know when it was written. I also, stuff like this, where you're randomly coding in things like this, no SEO value. Okay. I wouldn't do this. I would only bold information that's useful for the family, like this 30-minute meal. I think that's very useful in a teaser text. I would definitely continue doing that. Would I bold the name of the recipes? No, not really. We've already talked about the fact that we don't want you to link to your to your images. We want to unlink those whenever we can. We also want to get out of the habit of needlessly repeating H tags. This is your H1. There's no reason ever to come down here and put another one of these here for H2s. None. You probably pick that up into some course. It's wrong. Don't do it. It's just over optimization. The first thing you should have had down here, this should have been an H2, and it should have said something like, here's why this recipe works. And then you should have just gone right in and talking about it. But look what we're doing here. Chicken enchilada casserole. If I was to go ahead and take a look a diagnosis here, and I was just to look at what you're doing here, chicken enchilada casserole, chicken enchilada casserole, chicken enchilada casserole. We don't want to over optimize this too much. This is actually pretty good, 1.48. I would just get into the habit of putting more of those text repetitions in the post and not in the actual headers that you're using on the page. Talked about this as well previously. No reason to list the ingredients, no reason to list the garnishes here. That's not a highest meets needs improvement for users. Just provide the photo, maybe label the photo, that's great. But unless we actually have some expertise to add here, I just wouldn't do this. Talked about the side by side. I say 2 photos are better than 3 across right here. Like that you're linking to your internal content whenever you can. That's what we want to do. Images are too small. Let's see here. It was something else. Okay, this is your card. I believe you're using WP Recipe Maker. You see the keywords here? There's a setting in WP Recipe Maker so that you don't have to show these on the card, and you don't have to. And let me be clear about this. I am absolutely 100% sure about this. This isn't going to get you into trouble. I've recommended it for years. This is called superfluous information. The code takes care of this. So we don't need to visually show these on the page. And you can see that it just gums up things considerably. You have the option within WP Recipe Maker to hide these from showing in the card. You're not going to get into trouble doing it, and it's going to look visually better for you. This is for voice search. This has no effect algorithmically for the on-page content itself. This is just for voice search, and they're marked up in the back with schema. Just hide these. Talked about this as well. Turn this into a shopping list. The notes, pretty good here. Not bad. Could definitely could work on some of this information. Let's see here. What were we going to show? Oh yeah, you had this. I noticed that you had very poor page speed numbers, but we're not really going to have a chance to. We're not really going to have a chance to review a lot of that. I did want you to see. One thing I did want to show people is that you have a lot of how-to content. I'm going to pop this up here. And this is your account. You can see here that you're filling the core web vitals very quickly. This isn't news to you. I know that it's, for those of you on the call, you're going to see a lot of this. You only want to focus on the mobile. Don't worry about the desktop. Google's not using that at all. But in the case of Rebecca here, we're going to take a look at her how-to information. She has a lot of how-to content, and she has a pancake charcuterie board here. This is totally fine. Why is this appropriate for use of how-to? Because I can't eat a charcuterie board. Okay. Now, here's the problem. This isn't about the board. Right here. See this? All those are edible, aren't they? Because they're edible, you cannot use how-to schema. This is a common issue. So in your case, Rebecca, this needs to be changed from how-to schema to recipe schema completely. We never use how-to schema on something that's edible. And all of the ingredients here are edible. So for those on the call are still confused by when to use how-to schema, just because it's a how-to post doesn't mean we use how-to schema. Okay. And for those of you who are confused by this, if we were to type in how-to schema in Google, right here at the top of the page, does your page provide instructions for food and drinks? Add recipe schema instead of how-to. I see this a ton. I see this in, there's multiple people who submitted their sites that did this. Understand that there's no value in doing this. You use recipe schema if it's edible. If it's not edible, then we use how-to. So if you think, even things like slicing cherries are still edible. So we don't use how-to schema on that. So just be aware of that specifically. All right, so continuing to move on here, let's go ahead and talk about Heal Me Delicious. See if I can pop this up. Nicole, thank you again for submitting your site. I know that you are an AIP and autoimmune protocol recipe site. You are using Media, which does place you at a disadvantage, unfortunately. I know that you're also using W3 Total Catch for catching. I would change that. Now, the reason we're going to talk about your site is how very important it is for you, Nicole, to be visible. You're visible here. I like that you have your photo on your homepage, but let's go ahead and take a look at one of your individual pages here. You see over here on the right-hand side on the sidebar, no photo of you at all. In fact, the only time I can see a photo of you is on your homepage. You see how there's no photo at all? This is very, very important because you are treated different than a vast majority of other food bloggers. Because you are an AIP blogger, you are considered a your money or your life blogger, which means that you are held to a different standard. You have to be considerably more visible with your content. I need to see a picture of you on your site. All of your content needs to be linked to an About Me page with a clear photo of you with your qualifications, preferably. If you do not have any health or medical certifications and you talk about any sort of the AIP as a condition, you're going to have this content medically reviewed. That's also something to be aware of when you put all this content together. Now, I think that in many cases, you've tried to stay away from actual notifications of, actual declarations of anything specifically health related in most of your content, but we really want to go the extra step and make sure everything is linked to you. There's clear published and last updated dates up here, that there's a photo of you on your sidebar, that we've done everything we can to make sure that you're doing well, to show you as someone that can be trusted. So if I click on your About Me page here, I want to see how this is slow. Took it a minute to load. Your page speed is something that you're going to have to work on. Of course, Media by default is slow. You see how it automatically is loading. All these video ads specifically on desktop, not great, not a fan of those. But you talk about how you navigate the autoimmune paleo protocol. You talk about information, but there's nothing here about you. This is going to hurt you. So hands down, if you can do anything, it would be you need to make yourself more visible. Make sure there's a nice photo of here. Be really detailed about what your qualifications are, if you've self-healed or anything like that. You really want to keep that on the down low, but you really want to show yourself as, if you are an expert or if you have clarifications here, detail that, because when you're using such different categories over here, and this is a your money or your life issue, we really want to make sure that we dial that in. Remove tags from displaying on posts. Let's go ahead and take a look at here's a pesto, wild leek pesto page. You've got some problems here. We should always have a content above the fold whenever we can. This could be teaser text, whatever you want. Then we have a photo of the finished dish. Make sure that you're using smaller paragraphs. I see how these spring flowing ephemerals are native to the Eastern US, and you linked out to the spruce, okay? Don't see an issue with that. We want to make sure that we're continuing to go down here. And when you're putting these posts together, and I think you kind of got the gist of when you've listening to the previous sites we reviewed, you need to use a sitemap. Here's why this recipe works. Here's how to make this recipe. Here's why this recipe works. Here's a photo of the ingredients. Here's step-by-step directions. Here's internal links to some of your questions you might have. All of that. But this is really strange because there's not a lot on the page. It's just pesto. It's not that hard. But you should have gone up here and talked about, here's why this recipe works. I'm making this pesto because of this, and also because I know that small batches of pesto might have these effects. And if there's any specific health effects for someone with AIP, you would make that statement, and then you would link out and support that statement from another site. And that's what you would do in a post like this. And then you would go in and write the post in another regular way using a clear outline, so that the user has everything that they need to make this recipe perfectly. What do we got here? Oops. you have link target issues. So what does that mean? Well, internal links do not open in new tabs. You see right there, when that open up in a new tab, that's a problem because number one, that'll skew your time on site and bounce rate issues with Google Analytics. And number two, this is incorrect for accessibility. So to fix this, you're going to buy, again, the link target fix. Here's the link target fix from the blog fixer. It shows you all, internal links open in the same tab. External links usually open in new tabs. And that's what you're doing with this fix here is you're going in and making sure that your links are correct. It looks like you've done okay with your external links, but in your case, it looks like all of your links are opening externally, and that's not correct. So we really want to fix that. I would really work on that. All right, continuing on here, let's go ahead and move over to Kalina's Kitchen. Did we get to that one? Let's go over here to, and thanks a lot for your patience, everyone, as I try to go through these notes. Where is Kalina's Kitchen? Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, this is going to be a good one. And this is Kalina. Thank you again for showing your site. The very first thing that I want you to see when I click on this site, notice what's missing? It's a sidebar. Now, Kalina, I don't know who told you that removing the sidebar was a good idea. I can guarantee you that it was not. And so I'm going to strongly urge you to add your sidebar back. By removing your sidebar, you have put yourself at a disadvantage in multiple ways. Number one, you've removed an ability for us to feature seasonal and popular content to increase your internal linking. Number two, you've removed the ability for us to actually go ahead and add and feature things like email signups and other signals. And number three, it also just does not look as good on desktop and mobile. So what I would urge you to do is I would go back and I would add in that sidebar specifically. If you want to have a full frontal, if you want to have like a full, it looks like you're on a Feast theme, you're on Foodie Pro, so I would urge you to buy the Feast plugin and set up the modern homepage. We can have a full modern homepage here, but whenever I've had bloggers remove their sidebars, and they've done it from an existing site, every instance, 100% traffic drops, 100%. And that's because we're fundamentally changing the internal link structure. We're fundamentally changing the flow of link equity and page rank through the site. It's something that I would change on your site specifically. I also would not run an Instagram slide bar, or it looks like you had Smash Balloon down here. This is going to horribly throw off your page speed. I would remove that completely. And I know that you're running AdSense, I believe. Now, I know that everyone wants to monetize as soon as they can, but as I tell bloggers all the time, the longer you hold off, the better you're going to do. So if you're running AdSense right now, I just wouldn't. You're never going to make enough to make it worthwhile, and it's going to cause you that much longer to build traffic. So here is a page speed report on your site specifically. We're going to give that a chance to run. I also know that looking at your site quickly that you are not using, I know you haven't spent much on your site, and that's fine. I get it. Maybe you have limited funds, but as soon as you can afford to buy something like WP Rocket, you should, because you're currently scoring a 30 out of 100. You can see here that your field data, your site is not getting enough traffic really to qualify for all of your pages for field data, but the lab data is not good. You're failing every one of the core web vitals. So this is largest contentful paint. This should be 2.5 seconds or faster. You can see here that you're way slow. This is cumulative layout shift. This should be 0.10 or less. You can see that you're failing that. Timed interactive, even if you weren't running any ads, you should really be at about 4 or 5 seconds. And a lot of this is just because you haven't optimized your images. Look how big your images are. For everyone on the call, you should never be loading an image into your site that's over, say, 200 or 300 kilobytes at the most. Upload the images, 1200 pixels wide, size at 200 kilobytes or less. use 60, 65 on the quality or lower, you're going to be surprised at how good it looks. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can't do that with my images. And we do that, we upload them, and then we run short pixel with lossy compression, or run a Magify with lossy compression, and we get images that are less than 100 kilobytes. We're also not lazy loading, so that's something we'd want to do. Look at all this, all this stuff here at the bottom that we don't need. Also, upgrade your hosting. I believe that, I don't know necessarily off the top of my head what hosting you're using, but if I'm seeing reduced internal server response, that means your host is not high quality. We're going to go ahead and fix all of that whenever we can. Okay, so Kalina, that's what I would work on specifically with regards to your site. Here's pasta ragazza, and again, I apologize for butchering that. I have enough trouble with English. I don't know how people master a foreign language, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up information here, and I believe that this is Kathleen's site. Kathleen, thank you again for introducing your site. I want to go ahead and point out, and just to kind of drive this home, what happens when we over-optimize, or what over-optimization looks like this. So Colleen, you had a recent post here for broiled salmon collars right here. We're going to pop this up, and you're going to notice two things. Number one, you too took away your sidebar. And again, we've talked about this. No SEO advantage, none, to you taking away your sidebar. I would love to know the reasoning behind it, or what you read, or if someone told you that this was going to help you, and we'll talk about it. Feel free to email me. It's not a problem. A couple things going on here. You can see that you haven't linked to an author page. You can see that you're linking to your homepage. That's not good. I like that you have published and last updated dates, but we need to link you, preferably your site name, your author name, not your site name, to your About Me page. Breadcrumb looks fine, no issues there. But look at what's happening when we're going down and taking a look at this post. Okay, whoops, this is popping up here. Salmon collars, salmon collars. Okay, let's take a look here. We're going to go to diagnosis, and we're just going to take a look at your headings. Got salmon collars, salmon collars, salmon collars, salmon collars, salmon collars. If we go to density and we look at your two words, see how we've way over optimized the post at 2.2%. Now you can go in and you could use a plugin like this to actually see how salmon collars are ranking in the search result. And I did. I went in and I took a look for you to see what the average keyword density for those who are ranking for salmon collars. And I went in and I found out that most of the sites that were ranking for salmon collars were ranking at about 1.2, 1.3, 0.67, much lower. So you're a weak site anyway. For you to have any chance of beating some of these sites, we're going to have to really work on de-optimizing some of your content, dialing back some of the bad practices that you appear to have picked up when you're putting these posts together specifically. I also want to go ahead and take a look at a couple issues with regards to your site here. If we go into your dashboard and we go over here to your Yoast plugin and we go to search appearance, do you see right here where you haven't filled out your organizational schema? Well, this actually creates a schema error if you don't fix it. So you need to go ahead and upload an image here as soon as you can. This image should be 200 by 200. It should be just a photo, maybe your logo, whatever you want to do. But we always want to fill out the organizational logo here. So do that as soon as you can. That's only going to help you. We also want to talk about the fact that you have two extra, you actually have what, let me go ahead and pop this up here. I'm going to go ahead and show you that you have a couple sitemaps going on. There's one. You see that one? XML sitemaps is being generated by Jetpack. See that? And then look at the second one. That's being generated by Yoast. Well, as you can imagine, having two sitemaps is confusing, and we definitely don't want to do that. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to go into Jetpack. We need to turn that off. We're actually going to go into settings here. and you're going to go over to traffic, and you need to pop this off right here. See that? Done. Now, if we go ahead and refresh this, see how it just redirects to the Yoast sitemap as we want? Yeah, that kind of little bit of confusion can cause problems because Google has said many times that we really don't need to do anything but submit a sitemap. That's how Google is going to find the majority of your content. And we want to make sure that there's no conflicts. Little simple things like that is how we're going to go ahead and fix this for you. So something to be aware of. We fixed that. Now let's go ahead and talk about some blog spam that's on your site. And this is a concern. Trust. You're in a very competitive niche. So it's very important that you police your comments as much as possible. This is an older post. You posted in 2017. You last updated on 2018. It has 81 comments, but look at this. It's all spam. Look at this. Minecraft. Here's this is a spam link. I tested this link here for you as an example. It's a spamware, so clearly don't click on it. There's lots of this on your site. As a matter of fact, I found no fewer than 300 to 400 comments that are all spammy. This lowers your site quality because comments are considered part of your site content. You need to go in here and police all of this. Most of your comments need to be deleted. And this is just something that you're going to have to work on to increase the bottom line quality of your site. But by far, Kat, that is the very first thing that you need to focus on. Go in and remove those offsite spam signals. There's a lot of them. Let's go ahead and get that taken care of. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead and go back over here. I know it's about 1:33. Let's go ahead and do one more site here, and we're going to look at, let's go ahead and look at Kelly, the Hungry Blue Board. She's on Trellis. Let's take a look at her site here. Now, Kelly, again, thank you for putting in your site for consideration. I went ahead and took a look, and it's really similar issues, but it's funny because a lot of people think, I moved to Trellis so that I wouldn't have any problem with page speed. Well, it's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, Kelly's having problems with page speed. It's one of those things where just because you move to Trellis doesn't mean that you're going to have page speed. You're going to have miraculous improvements on all of your page speed. Kelly fails a lot of her core web vitals, and the reason that is it just because she hasn't optimized the images that she's uploaded as much as she should. So this is an example of her blueberry lemon bundt cake, and she's in on Trellis. You can see here she's failing her largest contentful paint, which is again should be 2.5 seconds. She's failing cumulative layout shift a little bit. You can see that this is the field data up here. She's passing the 3 core web vitals, folks. So the first input delay, we want this to be less than 100 milliseconds, and then the largest contentful paint here, we want that to be less than 2.5. So it looks like she's good on both of those. It's the cumulative layout shift that she's failing here. This is Google saying, hey, our field data says that you're 600% worse than you should be on this page. But then the lab data doesn't line up. You see, it's a 0.13. So this is something that we'd want to work on. One of the things that you've got to start thinking about is look at how you're not optimizing your images. Just because you're on Trellis, you have to optimize your images. In no world is it acceptable for you to ever upload an image to your site that's this big. So you should be working at trying to limit the images to 200 to 300 kilobytes and then uploading those. Don't make Trellis work so hard to optimize these images. It's just like every other theme. It's going to hurt you. So we want to lower the image size whenever we can. We also want to go ahead and set up things like, the CSS. Looks like jQuery hasn't been deferred. We're having some fallback issues with CSS. This hasn't been set up. And then I would be concerned about your hosting. See the reduced server response? I don't know who you're hosting with, but again, a solid host, whether it's with Big Scoots or, another, we want to do managed hosting as much as we can. Big Scoots is my top recommendation there. Others will work, but we really want to dial all this stuff in because this is a concern. This is not good for a Trellis site. We can do better. So don't think just because you've moved to Trellis, it's call it a day, because there's lots of information Lots of things that we need to work on here specifically. Now let's go ahead and pull up this blueberry lemon bundt cake and take a quick look at it. I like the fact that you've got your published and last updated information. Kelly, you've got a link up here, but it's not going to your About Me page, so that needs to be fixed. I know that you're using Mediavine, but I definitely don't want you to have them take over your jump button. It doesn't look like you did, which is good. I don't have any problems with using Grow. That's fine. Looking at this post here, see how if I click on it, you didn't unlink your images. That's, again, an extra click that users don't need. I would go in and I would unlink all of those. I would definitely optimize your sidebar a little bit more effectively. I like you've got your 3 recommended here. What's new? Oh man, Mimi, it's not so bad. Couple photos here, ingredients you need. All of these photos need to be unlinked. How to make this recipe. Whenever we do collages, we number the collages. People fail to read collages correctly the whole time. So just be aware of that. Try to make sure that everything is as toddler and drunk adult optimized as possible, so that if I'm reading through this, I can follow it. Number the collages. Okay. What order do you want users to read these collages in? Recipe notes and tips. Good job on that. Blueberry. Not sure we need 3 or 4 photos of the finished dish, so I would change that. Remember, longer is not better. The only reason that it's longer is because Mediavine wants you to show more ads. Always think about your user there. You've got some related posts here. Good call to action. Good. I would go in, if you're going to stick with WP Recipe Maker, I would go in and optimize this card. I would go ahead and link your author timeline here. Let's go ahead and turn this into a checkable checklist. You go under ingredients and choose checkboxes instead of bullets or instead of discs. Good instructions, good notes. I like it. Yeah. Let's go ahead and get that. Oh, by the way, let's remove all this stuff. We don't need to link to Trellis. We don't need to link to Mediavine. They're certainly not linking to you. So remove all of that from your site as much as you can. That's just, we want to control a little bit of our page rank as much as we can. We only link out when it's providing a value to users. Definitely something I would work on. So, okay. On that note, I wish we had all day, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share. And I know that I wish I'd been able to get through more sites. Hopefully that was a good overview of all the various options we can do. I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share and go back here. I'm going to wait for Leslie to pop in here. The thing to understand about with the site audit, and hopefully this was helpful for some of you on the call, is that SEO is all about the little things, okay? Your goal is to make the bottom line best recipe you can, but it needs to be useful. When we talk about, Casey, what's the top ranking factor for Google? In many cases, it's being useful. It's what can you do to make sure that the first time user can make your recipe 100% perfectly the first time, every time. That's what we want to do. We also want to make sure that we do the easy things. We go in and we make sure that we provide good edit post information at the top of our posts. We're making sure that we've unlinked our images. We've made sure that we've gone in and fully filled in all of our missing schema. Again, I wish I had a chance to cover everything, but there was missing schema today on most of these recipes. Go into Search Console. You're in WP Recipe Maker. Go in, fill in all of your missing schema. Optimize that sidebar. Make sure that you've unlinked images when you insert them into posts. Optimize the images before you upload them. All that stuff's going to help you. So hopefully this is helpful for you. And I'm going to turn it back over to Leslie, and we'll see you during the presentation. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks so much, Casey. We've learned so much, so valuable. We really appreciate you being a part of Tastemaker.
Well, thanks for having me. Really, very nice. It's always a great group. So, and again, I can't believe that anyone would ever want to listen to me for 90 minutes. So we have that.
We do. All right. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.